Last week, Lorna Goodison shared her journey from Jamaica to New York. The author, essayist, and poet was hiding her work, even once placing them in a pile and burning them. So what changed? Part 2 now of my interview with her. I'm Archibald Gordon. This is Profile. Welcome to Profile, part 2 now of my conversation with renowned Jamaican author, poet, and literary artist Lorna Goodison. Last week we talked about growing up, what the family was like, and the early influences, the fact that you hid so much of your work, even burned some of it when you were very young until you went on to the art, went to school for art, both locally, Jamaica School of Art, and then overseas in New York. And then the writing just sort of emerged. You just, at a point, decided, this is the thing I want to do. Tell me this, because there's a starving artist thing that we always talk about. How do you do that? How do you reconcile that? Needing to write and, feeling the need with needing to pay bills. How you solve the problem?
What I would do is I'd try to get a project, like a writing project. I've done all kinds of writing. I've written speeches, I've written and I did a lot of copywriting in advertising. I've written scripts, anything. So I just go, if I got something like that, I'd write that and I figure that would pay my rent, and that has bought me 2 weeks writing. And that's how I lived for many years, I would just kind of find, if I got a freelance job, I'd do that. And then I figured 3 weeks so I could just stay home and write.
So that stay on my right now, what does that stay on my right look like? Is you're not, there are artists who have said, I get up every day and I write. I sit in front of the computer, I write a line. You're not that person. No,
I write when the spirit moves, and very often my spirit is particularly fond, or my muse is fond of like waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning?
For some reason, 3 a.m., I just have to get up. And I go downstairs or wherever, and then I write.
That is from an image, a word, something you've watched before?
A feeling of terrible discomfort, like, get up. You just have to get up and go, I can't lie here. I'm not going to sleep anyway, so I better just go and do it.
So in terms of the subjects of what you write about now, where do those come from?
I wish I knew. I have no idea. I just know sometimes I'm drawn to something or someone. I have a poem I've written in this book, Mother Muse, one of my latest book is Dante's Inferno. Okay? Yes. But the book before that was a book called Mother Muse, in which I wrote some poems about Sister Mary Ignatius, Sister Iggy at Alpha Boys School, and Margarita. But I wrote a poem in here about a friend of mine I used to go to school with. I hadn't seen her from like we were 5. But for some reason, I just kept remembering this girl and about she was very cry. And so it's a poem about being cry. And she read it somewhere online and wrote to me and went all back to my friends.
I mean, you must be worried about not making any money, but you don't make it the center of what you do.
Well, because I've never wanted to be rich. I'm not somebody who has ever said, God, I wish I was rich and had a whole heap of money and a big car or anything like that. No, my mind doesn't work like that. And I even now, I think I'm blessed with what I have, but I don't have any, I'm not consumed by any, great desire to be a big wealthy person or anything like that.
At which point were you kind of like, yeah, I'm a writer? Or is that never a thing? Writer, I'm a poet. Because you have other people saying it to you.
I think they can say it. I'm not going to go around saying it. I think it does you in if you go around thinking too much about those things. Honestly, I think you should just do the work and do the work. I work very hard at my writing. I do numerous drafts. And that's the thing I dislike most about poetry in particular. You have to work really hard to make it read as if it was very easy.
Oh, you know when you're finished? How you know when you're done? How do you know?
You have to have that thing in you, which, if you don't have that, then you're not a writer. That's that thing, that sense, or that things that is looking over your shoulder, that editor we saying, you know, that won't work, you know, it don't sound right, it don't feel right. It's with you all the time when you're working, you know. And yeah, I have one particular poem, a poem called Annie Pengele. The last line took me a year to get right. Because every time I wrote it, I knew it wasn't right. And I had to wait 1 year until it resolved itself.
When you're doing that, are you able to write other things at the same time? No, for the purposes, the practicality. But
no, I can write other things, but I just know that poem is not finished, you know. So you have to, I'm in it. I remember once saying to myself, okay, when I stopped burning the poems, I remember I used to live in Gordon Town in one of Miss Lou's houses. A house called Bonononos, a lovely, beautiful house. My son Miles was born there. And I remember standing at the window and looking out and saying, all right, I'm going to just go with this poetry business. I'm not going to get rid of them anymore. But I would like to be the best poet I can possibly be. I want to be able to improve with what I want to grow. And if I ever find that I'm not growing, I'm not going to do it anymore. So that's how I approach it. I would like to think that with every book I bring out, I have improved somewhat.
How do the different kinds of things that you do feed each other and feed your writing? So you have this that you're doing for practicality's sake. You're also writing, you can write prose at a point.
Yeah.
How do they feed each other?
It just depends. You know, when I used to do painting and poetry together, very often it would be because there was a particular subject I was drawn to, and I painted it, but I still was thinking about it, so I'd write a poem about it, because I had not exhausted that idea. Mm-hmm. And I think the same thing happens now. You know, if I haven't exhausted it, I go to another medium. So Harvey River became growing up in my house, my mother was always telling these stories about growing up in Harvey River as a child. And I love those stories. I don't think anybody else valued those stories. With all due respect to my siblings, they're like, oh, the whole Harvey River story there again, you know. But I thought they were wonderful. I thought they were funny and brilliant. And then when I spent a lot of time with my mother towards the end of her life, helping to look after her, and I'd be there like, you know, combing her hair or bathing her or something, and she'd be telling me these stories. So I took that as her permission to write them down, and also because I just thought that some of those stories, people should hear them. They're funny. They're wonderful.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we have to take our first break on part 2 of my conversation with Lorna Goodison, memoirist, essayist, poet, author. Back with you after these messages.